So please, my binti is, let's contemplate ourselves, and that's the biggest gift for ourselves, our family and humanity. To engage in calm, krodh, lobh, moh, ahankar, lust, anger, greed, ego, attachment. How do we overcome those? What's our everyday shield?
You know, Maharaj is like, this is the state of the world, but here, my child, I'll give you a gem of protection.
Hanji, wow.
And that was the huge realization I had, like a spark went off in my mind, and I was just, wow. And in that moment, I realized how powerful that piece of Gurbani is.
It's so deep, it's so huge.
I feel like something that people are struggling with, and especially in spiritual communities, is discernment, knowing what is actually right for them, what spiritual practice is right for them. But like you said, a lot of people do get influenced.
A demon only sees the negative in everything. And so the sword is a sign of alchemy and transformation and magic.
The power of the prayer is something so unexplainable. Magic happens. I don't know how to describe it. I'll just say magic happens, right? Seek within. Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh. So I'm sitting today with Kamalroop Singh, and it's a blessing to be in your presence today. We've been remembering God. We're doing some Simran, connecting, talking about our journey, and it's just a true blessing to sit with someone who's got this very strong devotional presence, and it's very clear. It's a radiance to someone like you, and it's a true blessing to be in that presence. So today's dialogue, we don't really have a specific subject, but one word which seems to be flowing into my mind is balance and harmony. So what do you feel like balance and harmony means to you currently in your spiritual journey, in your life journey right now?
It's a really good question, Gurj, and we've met over the years at different festivals, and I've always felt drawn to you, and I see your purity and your awakening and your seva and your kindness, and it's always and also connection to my son-in-law. And you know, it's a small world, so thank you for having me, and that we can share about these things which are really dear to our heart and soul, that are above the ordinary and the mundane. The ordinary and mundane is really beautiful, but too much of it can become a problem, Hana. So it's always a privilege to be in the Sangat and to talk about the Sach and do some Kirtan and devotion. And so the harmony and balance, very important words, Hana. And in Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj, in Maharaj's Pavitra Bani, I think that Guru Maharaj calls this sage. So equilibrium, equanimity, I think they use the word in Buddhism, where we're at peace with everything, that we feel connected to everything in some kind of way. I know that there's no separateness. And I think what we can say, what harmony is when we don't feel separate, when we don't feel we're antagonized by anything, we don't have friction with anything, we don't have frustration with anything. I think that's a good way of seeing it through the negative. On a positive way of looking at it, I think that it's kind of, we have to talk about it in a poetic sense. I think it's when we're in a unified field of consciousness. What Guru Nanak says is Onkar. What we can say is God consciousness, Brahm Gyan, or that sorti of a Brahm Gyani. I think Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj says a Brahm Gyani is the one who's reached total equilibrium, sage. And that sage, that harmony, I know, like in Taoism, and you know about these kind of things, in Buddhism as well, there's a lot of stress on equanimity and harmony and flow and fluidity. Bruce Lee talks a lot about that, the nature of water. And so I think there's something like that where you feel unhindered. You don't feel your life is like you're dragging yourself along. You feel light, you feel fresh, you're in the flow. I think that's harmony, and I think that's through connection. And I think that the key thing to develop that, which isn't easy, is to drop our ego. So when we have some type of meditative practice, like we just did some Waheguru Simran for a few minutes, it just connects you back to the source, back to Waheguru's Jaran. And then you have something to surrender to. And then when you come out, back out of that, everything looks fresh, everything looks vibrant. everything looks shiny, everything looks really alive. And I think that when we're in ego, we're in a kind of like a death. We're in a false sense of self, not our real self, not our true self. There's joyful, playful, easygoing, things can't bother it. And we were talking before we started, and one of my things is maybe I won't complain with my mouth, but sometimes inside myself I can complain. And it was like this morning in meditation, I was like saying to my mind, like, don't complain, it's okay. Like, learn to see the fun in things. So I think in a paradoxical thing in this is, in order for us to achieve Sage, we have to put himmat in. So the effort must go in first, and then the relaxation follows second, where we enter that tranquil state.
He said a lot of key things which are important in this time, and I feel like a lot of people will benefit from having that balance. Balance to me also means having that spiritual discipline and that stillness and that peace and that pure understanding that everything is okay, and that pure surrendering, that acceptance, and that being harmonized and balanced with knowing when it's time for action as well, when it's time to stand up, when it's time to say something, when it's time to move, when it's time to rebel. Balance is important, and it's good to have both elements of that, and that then creates that wholeness, that completeness. I would like to acknowledge the amazing work you've been doing with the Sri Guru Sarbloh Granth's translations, because I've mentioned to you before that that's reading Sarbloh Granth has been hugely transformational for me. So having a source of English translation, I feel like will just transform people's perceptions and help people to really understand what it means, because a lot of it is quite complex, and especially the language used in there is quite complex, so it really will help people to connect. So huge blessings for that. I've been really excited for the last few weeks, for the last few months since I heard about it, so huge blessings. The next thing I'd like to acknowledge is the work you've been doing with Braham Kavach Mantra. As I was mentioning to you off camera, that Shabad, there's something hugely resonating with me. It's been an immense part of my journey over the last 4 years or so, since it just found me, that Shabad just found me, it was gifted to me, it just came, through divine grace. And it really, to me, it felt like, as someone who's gone through spiritual awakening, rediscovering myself, rediscovering the world, what is the true nature of this universe, that Shabad was something which just kept my mind grounded and still and trusting, and not just that, but also empowered me in that state as well. It was something that became a friend to me, it became a companion. Whereas at other times, doing a mantra can feel like, there's a discipline to it, there's a task. But for me, there was so much joy coming from doing it. My mind was wanting to do it. Rather than setting a discipline in time, it's like the mind is like, I want to do this. And it would just keep coming in my mind again and again. And it would make me more and more happy and more joyful. So I'd like you to talk about your experiences with Braham Kavach and what you've experienced from it personally.
Well, thank you for those really enlightening words and your kind words. I really appreciate them a lot. And as you know, Maharaj takes his own seva. We can't even make ourselves breathe or our heart even beat. And so everything's within the divine will, and I feel really grateful that I can be a conduit at time for good things. Sometimes I make mistakes, I take those on myself, but sometimes I have to acknowledge good things can come through me, and I'm thankful for that. And there's so much you said, and I don't know where to begin, but I think this is a good place to begin, which is that Guru Sahib, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and Dasਵੇਂ Paatshah and Sri Guru Granth Sahib and the Panth, they made us into Sant Sipahi. So we're soft-hearted. Like, you're one of the most soft-hearted people I know, which is a great virtue. Must have done thousands of lives of bhakti to get such a Malayan Del, like to have such a soft wax heart. That takes so much seva, so much dedication. And so to have a compassionate heart, first name of the Panj Pyara, by Daya Singh Ji, Daya is the foundation of all dharma. And so our first duty is compassion. But sometimes when we take that route of being soft, people can walk over us. Our boundaries break down. That's where Maryada comes in, and being a warrior. The warrior's tool and the wizard's tool also, like on a kind of a Western mythological level, the Excalibur, the Khanda, the Bhagoti, the feminine divine. Maybe remember it's the Lady of the Lake who gives the sword through the Pani in the Arthurian legends. In the Sikhi legends and Hindu legends, the sword comes through the fire, the Agni, to the Devas, which is passed down subsequently. And so the sword is a sign of alchemy and transformation and magic. So it's not just a Shastra. It represents something magical. If it wasn't magical, how would it impart Naam when we take Amrit Sanchar through the Khanda? That's how we receive the Naam, the rebirth, the transmutation. So all magic is about transmutation. And so the Braham Kavach is also called the stanzas of the Bhagoti, the poetry of the Bhagoti, Karaga Khanda. So the first two words, the Karaga and the Khanda, Asi Argar, they're all names of the Shastra. And so the Braham Kavach is a kind of a eulogy, ustat of the Shastra by Guru Maharaj. It's very, very important because we're Shastratari, we're Kshatri, we're warriors. Anyone in the Sikh Panth, regardless of their ancestral jat, is a Kshatri, is a Sodhi. Doesn't matter where they're from. That's why Maharaj made the Amrit Sanchar of Khande Ka Paul, to make us all equals, a fraternity of brothers and sisters bathing in that solar energy of being warriors, to be emancipated, empowered and strong. So we had to be soft-hearted with that strength. That's a kind of an ideological level, and on a yogic level, Hatha Yoga, the sun and the moon. So you could look at the bhakti of Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj's Luna as almost Vaishnava, like Krishna, Guru Nanak, the Puranmashi. We were talking about the energies, how in Puranmashi the energy gets more sattvic, you get more resolution. In bhakti, you can really see more refinement when you look within. And so the bhakti of Guru Granth is very shantaras. But the bhakti of Dasam Granth Sahib and Sarbloh Granth Sahib is very biras, very solar. These go hand in hand. Just like the bhatta of the Khanda and the Khande Ka Paul, the bhatta we can see is the lunar vessel, and the Khanda we can see is the solar vessel. So we can look at it in a tantric way, like the phallus and the yoni. We can look at it like that also, which is controversial, but sariyan cheez everything Shiva and Shakti, And so the thing is, when we look at it, what's that? It's the ultimate sage, isn't it? The sun within the moon, which is the Khanda, the bhatta, as in the Chand Torah. And so the Chand, this sun and moon, this is the sage we were talking about. That's also the Braham Kavach. That's also the ustat of that Shastra. It's so beautiful to symbolize the divine grace as a Shastra. Now we need to talk about it metaphysically. What is that divine grace within us? It's when it cuts through our karmas. How do our karmas happen? They happen on our mental patterns. Those mental patterns, whether they're addictive patterns, whether they're patterns to look at bad things like pornography, to do nindya, to do chugli, to talk about our brothers and sisters, to lower them down, high ourselves up. We're all guilty of these things. To engage in kam, krodh, lobh, moh, hankar, lust, anger, greed, ego, attachment. How do we overcome those? What's our everyday shield? Bani, bhakti, naam, seva, simran, katha, kirtan, ishnan, dan. These are our daily shastra against that. What does the Braham Kavach do energetically? It cuts through those karmas. It not only cuts through those karmas like on an individual level, but lifetimes of us doing those things, where they've accumulated in our psyche, you could say on an astral level. And so we were talking earlier on, like people talk about entities in the West, and like I can talk about these things with you because I know you're a very enlightened person. And so there's entities that can jimber, they can attach to somebody. In Islam they call them jinn, Gore can call them genies, ghosts. In Sikhi, Bhoot, Pret, and Nisach, all these different names of these things, Rakesh, all these kind of negative entities. But what we forget is they have an illusion. They have a Maya. It's not that on a worst case they jimber to you or they get in your psyche, but we forget they have ideas. And those ideas are all over Kaljug. And I think for me, especially Braham Kavach is what raises those subtle impressions, what Buddhists would call sanskars, impressions from the psyche, to leave the psyche like a clean mirror. So that, what does Maharaj say? What do we say in Ardas? Bibek Dan. So Braham Kavach on the fire ceremony is about Bibek. It's about reigniting that ability to discern through the third eye. When do we make mistakes? When we don't think properly. When we act in haste. When we have that little bit of hosh, we stop that kind of erratic behavior, when we have that sage. And that's definitely what the Braham Kavach is creating. And I think for nowadays, especially, we were talking because we kind of frequent the same circles and our what we call our hippie friends, because we're not hippies, we're Guru de Sikh, but we love those people because they have freedom, they have love, they're good people, they're well mannered, they're generous. They have actually a lot of qualities Sikhs could learn from too, because we've lost those things. They're not judgmental, there's a lot of judgment in the Gurdwara.
Very accepting.
But in Naramband, they are soft-hearted people. They really carry good in them. But one thing they lack is that grounding. They're all over the place. You point them in that direction, they go in that direction. You point them in this direction, they go in this direction. And those type of people, unfortunately, they're used and abused in society. Many people use them to get numbers for festivals, for paise. You see all this exploitation. But if they had that grounding of a warrior, they'd have boundaries. And I think for those type of people, Braham Kavach is an exceptional medicine. Because they've had the Kundalini awakening where their surti has awakened and gone up into the higher chakras and opened their upper chakras, which when that happens, which everything, even a sound seems really loud, every thought becomes very vivid, you can become very afraid. If you don't have anchoring, you don't have grounding. And I think a lot of them, they're addicted to tobacco, to alcohol, to nasha, to dampen this awakening. And Braham Kavach can allow you to accept that awakening and not be afraid of it. Because this is one of those, like people watching this, I think, what's he talking about? But you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know that, they need to go and sit there and practice Naam for a few months or a few years until they get Gur Prasad. But when that Gur Prasad happens, your inner light wakes up, the energy moves up, your senses get more acute. It's not that you become enlightened, it's on the way. Now you started to become enlightened. You're on the Rasta now. And in there's many challenges that we didn't know about, no one's told us about, and that's a very unsure journey. And the Braham Kavach is one of the biggest protections, like it says Kavach, on that metaphysical inner reality to protect you. It's a long answer, sorry.
It's a beautiful answer. And I feel like Braham Kavach is a topic in itself that we could probably continue talking about for many hours. It's so profound. The journey that it takes one on, and it even says the fruits that are included from reciting that Shabad. So it's so powerful, it's so beautiful. And I've heard so many people's experiences, unmovable things being moved, the unchangeable things being changed, like miracle type experiences, right? People's blocks and obstacles being dissolved. It's so potent, it's so powerful, and it all is the grace of God. It's all divine grace, the grace of the Guru. And it kind of leads into something else that was in my mind. And you did touch on this briefly, about, I feel like something that people are struggling with, and especially in spiritual communities, is discernment or intuition, right? Knowing what is actually right for them, what spiritual practice is right for them, what tools or what anything, in what food even. This can be thought of in any aspect of their life. But like you said, a lot of people do get influenced, whether it's by an influencer, whether it's by a facilitator or a space holder or something on TV or YouTube. And I feel like it's so important. And I do try and mention this in my workshops about how do you feel, like have your own discernment, does this practice make you feel better? And what if you eat that food, how do you feel? Do you feel more energized, more alive, more awake? So I'd like to ask you the question, what advice do you have for people in this time, in this age, to improve their intuition, to be more grounded and secure, and have that discernment of working out what is good for them and what isn't, and separating that so they can walk their path with joy and peace?
Thank you. It's a really good question, and it's a deep question. It's not easy to answer, but I'm going to try my best with the intellect and the mind Guru Sahib's blessed me with. And so, what is this age like? Kal Yug, So we see it as the degenerate age. You can say Kal, the age of death, dark age. You can also look at it as technological age. So Kal, you could look at it as being Saturnian, dark, ruled by Shani, ruled by technology, law, military, like an imprisonment age. So a tyrannical age. This is where Bant Prakash Ratan Singh Pangu starts from. Why? Kal Taran Guru Nanak Aya. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji came not just emancipate us spiritually, he came to rebel against the tyrannical age. That's why Maharaj writes the Babar Bani in Guru Granth Sahib against Babar's rule. He was in prison. Chakki aap challi sigi, the chakki, the grinding wheel of the flour, he miraculously turned in his cell when he was imprisoned. So Guru Nanak, we forget, was Shastrtari. He went to jail. Now, we know people who go to jail. Look at the stigma now. But our first Guru went to jail. He would have been a convicted felon in this age. We don't think that, because our image of Maharaj is so high, we can't think that. But he was a rebel. And so ek Kal Yug gaya, and each subsequent Guru rebelled against that. Guru Arjan Dev Ji Shaheed hoye sige. And I need to add this. People look at Guru Arjan Dev Ji as the first Shaheed of the Panth. No, he was not. The first Shaheed of the Panth was Qazi Ruqaddin, who was a Muslim Sikh. So he was a Muslim who followed Guru Nanak as his Murshid, and he was beheaded for that. He was actually the first, and we call them Marid. He was the first Marid of the Panth. We should acknowledge this, because we rewrite our history to suit ourselves, which is not right. Fair Guru Arjan Dev Ji Sahib, and then after that, the subsequent Shaheed Diyan, Guru Tegh Bahadur Maharaj, and the Sahibzade, etc. And so this age of Kal Yug is tyrannical. So many things are put there which are not really in our interest. Pame tamakua, pame sharabia, cocaine, ketamine. List is too long as my arm. This the line, as long as this, Ke kinne vice ya hon. Again, used to be fame and other things. I don't know how many vices there are now. So we know the tyranny is through vices, through money, the financial system, many ways, Can we see that around the world? And unfortunately, even on a lower level, when you get to kind of new age kind of things, a lot of lies to suit those particular people selling a certain course or a product. And so discernment is very difficult, because the discernment that we talked about is going to protect us. So instead of, I don't want to keep talking about the bad, I want to talk about what's the solution. And first thing is, we say in the Ardas, please God, please Guru, please Divine Oneness, Divine Spirit, Great Spirit, Mahakal, Waheguru, Allah Ram, Jehovah, Yahweh, please give me discernment. First we have to ask, because that virtue doesn't belong to us. Sab gun tere mein nahi koi, vin gun kite bhagat na hoy. All virtues rest within Waheguru's charan. First we have to ask. Second thing is, we must cultivate. And I believe this in my own practice, is in the morning when I sit there and I gather my breath together, I'm not rushing, I'm not trying to go into the next moment, I'm sitting with myself. That's where discernment is born. That's where the third eye is activated. Tisri akh, the lochan, dibdristi. That's where that's activated, because the chanan goes inside it, because the blood or the energy, you could say blood or energy, however you want to say it, it's not going into the lower faculties of digestion, sex energy, protection, retinue, our own kind of kingdom, our own house, our own kind of small world. It's not going into that, it's moving above. And so when it reaches here, suddenly we get some light, some energy, everything becomes clear. We have insights in that meditation. Things like Braham Kavach, there will help. I believe in these type of things, so some people won't like this, but I believe jyot loni chaidiya for the gurus and for the shaheed things. The jyot, if you can't do that, a candle, 2 candles, one for the shaheeds, one for the gurus, to kind of honor their spirit and honor their sacrifice. And also tulp, some incense to purify, sit in a pure space. Like, you can't do bhakti in your bed. This is lazy. Like, sit, make an asana, make it nice, and you sit there and you make it a practice out of it, and you empower that particular spot every day with that energy. So when you sit in it, you have that muscle memory. I know it's not muscle, but meditation memory. You go back into it. Like, Braham Gyani is always in that state. And people say, well, Osho said, always do everything in that state. Well, first you have to cultivate it. You must cultivate it. And then when you keep doing that, cultivating it, I'm not in that state all the time, but I know you can be, because I felt that. And then I felt my mind come and pull me out of it. And it's a battle to kind of, and I guess it's Guru's Kirpa. And so when we're in the discernment, nothing can fool us. Nothing can deceive us. And I think for our Sikh people who are watching, our brothers and sisters, Chaupai Sahib Paath, because that is, from the Charitra Upakyan, very controversial part of the Dasam Granth, with lots of stories about deceit, sexuality, has things covered like bestiality, homosexuality, fake gurus, everything we see, all kind of weird vices, they're all covered by the Guru, but also the bravery of men and women are covered by the Guru there. And the last story is Chaupai Sahib.
And a lot of people don't know this, right?
No.
And I found, when I realized this, when I was doing my search part of Dasam Granth, and I realized this, a huge click happened in my mind, right? That, our Divine Father, Dhan Dhan Sadhu Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, told us the state of this age that we are living in, right? All the possible traps and deceits that people can fall victim of, right?
Anji.
And there's, 404 stories there, and then at the end, 405, Chaupai Sahib comes, Gabya Bach, Benati Chaupai. And, Maharaj is like, this is the state of the world, but here, my child, I'll give you a gem of protection.
Anji. Wow.
And that was the huge realization, I had like a spark went off in my mind, and I was just, wow. And in that moment, I realized how powerful that piece of Gurbani is.
So powerful.
And I don't think most people know that.
And it's the only Bani that we recite twice a day for that reason. So all this deceit and everything, the Charitra, Guru, where's the most tricks and deceit used in warfare? So in the Bhai Daya Singh Rahatnama, the Siddhi Mukhvak, when Guruji is talking to Bhai Daya Singh Ji, Maharaj says, I have written this Bani to teach you the ways of battle and to give you the nerve for battle. So it means to see through the deceit of the enemy, but that deceit now is on a psychic level through all the vices and the negative things and the cynicism and everything we're bombarded with to keep ourselves in a Chardikala protected spirit is Chaupai Sahib, like you explained. And Maharaj recited this Bani in 13 hours, 13 days and 13 minutes at Sri Babur Sahib. And Babur Sahib itself is referenced within Chaupai Sahib as the edge of the Satadhara river. And there's a dam there now. And so it's referenced, that was finished around 1696 AD, September. It even gives you the month. And that particular part of Chaupai Sahib, with the colophon, which is the date in the Brij Pasha, was signed in Maharaj's own hand in the Anandpuri Sarup, which also contains Hukamname from Mata Jito Ji and contains a portrait of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj and other treasures within that Sarup. So we have even a signed version of the Chaupai Sahib from the Guru's own heart, from his Hast Kamal. And, it's amazing that we have this. And the Chaupai Sahib, another thing that really strikes me symbolically is, like you said, 405 stories. This is the 405th story, the gem of protection, which you said so beautifully. But the full Chaupai has 405 verses. So the 405th story with the 405 verses because of the 405 Charitra. Like, what kind of mind makes this. And I did, in my PhD, I did some research and I wanted to look at things psychologically. I did 6 months of psychological research. I got very interested in these type of things, but unfortunately, in the end, I had to write about history because my tutor said either you choose this or you choose this, and I had to choose history. But I did 6 months of writing, and I discovered that the Buddhists actually look at the mind of having that it has 405 facets. So it's connected to this, like the different kind of avastas of the mind, like the pasubirti, the animal type of mind we have, which is the id in Sigmund Freud's psychology, the animalistic, the animus inside us. Then you have the human level of our mind. Then you have a warrior, the veer, the heroic person like Joseph Campbell. Like when a person raises to the level of sacrificing oneself or doing something bigger than oneself, we can see that in Sikhi. And then above that, Param Purusha, the divine, which Sigmund Freud completely been wiped out of modern psychology, super consciousness or supra consciousness, just not normal consciousness, which some mental diseases like schizophrenia relate to that state. So their diseases cause within a higher state really, and that's why they can't get cured. You need a shaman to cure that type of disease. And so, you know, there's very interesting things. So the Chaupai Sahib, and again, is going into that astral, that expanded world. And it's not just protecting us in this world, it's protecting our journey through time, through space, and through infinity, through where our consciousness is literally a part of everything in the new universe. It's so deep, it's so huge. That's why, like, people say, well, it's not that many verses. That's why it took 13 days. That's Maharaj's bhakti, you know, nearly 2 weeks of sitting there in ultimate dhyan with Parameshwar, in absolute supreme merger with the lotus feet of Guru Sahib, of the Mahakal, of the ultimate one. And then Guruji brought this beautiful piece to light. So I think discernment, you know, our Nityanam is instrumental, our Ishnan, you know, washing every day. Like some of our hippie friends, they have a problem to wash, and I always encourage them, wash is very important for your mind, body and soul. Pani, hai na? Pavan Guru Pani Pita, to get this stability of water. And so, you know, and also just to finish the thing about discernment, if we're having 10 coffees a day, 10 teas, you know, Red Bull, fizzy drinks, red meat, other meat, machi, ande, sugar, sweetener, crisps, McDonald's, all this kind of junk food, how are we going to have any discernment? It's all going to be destroyed. And then we get Rakesh Buddhi. That's what the Nirmali Sadhu Sant and sadhus in India call it. Rakesh Buddhi means you get the intellect of a demon. You're left with the intellect of a demon, dualistic thinking. And I see this in Apane Bande. I'm sorry to say it, in Sikhs. There's some Sikhs I meet, whether they're Amritari or whether they're Sehjtari with cut hair, they can be very cynical. That's Rakesh Buddhi. Because a demon cannot see good in anything. A demon only sees the negative in everything. This is negative, that is negative, the Gurdwara is negative, this is negative. The Rakesh Buddhi, it's not some Ucha Avasta or scientific even. It's just wanting to see the negative in everything. And lo and behold, as you probably know, Gurj, those people, what are they in love with? Not their family, not their dharma, the bottle. That's their puja, is that bottle. That's their bhakti. Which is a very demonic kind of bhakti.
It is.
I accept them, they're my brothers and I love them, and look, I'm not judging you. मैं तुहाडे चरणां दी dust हाँ, मैं तां कुछ नहीं हैगा. But it's a shame. Because we need to elevate our mind and not be in that level of consciousness. And that's where I think also for discernment, plant medicine can help. So Shahidi Dega, you know, these kind of psychedelics, ayahuasca, psilocybin. That's why people gain so much clarity through those processes, can really clean out things, shadows that are sitting there. But I think that's only for really people who are true seekers and have been doing a lot of meditation, self-purification, diet. Because diet, Hana, and the ayahuasca process is really important. You shouldn't just run into ayahuasca without the proper preparation. So I think Babek Dan is a big thing to ask the Guru to receive, to want to stay in, and to really if we receive that gift from the Guru, should we go out of it? We should try our best to stay in it.
Absolutely.
ठीक है नहीं? Because our hankar sometimes will want to break out of it, and I'm the biggest elephant because they call that kunchar ki ishnan, where the elephant, it bathes itself in pani, then it throws mitti on itself. I'm the biggest elephant in the room, right?
I guess it's kind of human nature though, right? In some way.
It is, but we have to keep working at it, Hannah.
Absolutely. Discernment is one of those things, and like you said, the diet plays a huge role in it. You know, what we watch on TV, the music we listen to, the sangat, you know, the people that we are around, the spaces we go to, all these things play a role in how much clarity we have in our intuition and in our discernment. And each one of those things that we can clean up in some way or refine or improve on will then improve our discernment and intuition accordingly. And it is one of those things which there has to be some level of discipline, there's some devotion, and also what you said, the first thing you said was requesting it from the divine, right? Remembering that we are just mere children of that divine essence, and with that innocence of remembering that we should ask, right? Ask with humbleness and with that innocence, like, God, I'm trying to be closer to you, I'm trying to see you, you know, please bless me with this grace. May I be blessed with discernment. You know, I'm actually saying this for myself right now in this moment. I'm not just saying it as a conversation, but I mean this for myself as well. You know, that we should remember to communicate with the divine, and that should be the first stage, and I'm really grateful you said that first as well, because I completely agree with that. The power of the prayer is something so unexplainable. Magic happens. I don't know how to describe it. I'll just say magic happens, right? God is eternally compassionate and forgiving and kind, and when we ask, like, prayers are heard, right? There's a question that came in my mind, and it's to do with circling back to, we mentioned earlier, your translation of Sarbloh Granth Sahib Ji. So the first chapter of that, and I just wanted to ask you personally, from your perspective, from your essence, what was the essence that you took away from that? So for me, when I recited for the first time the Gurbani version, and for me, I understand these things quite differently to other people, I feel, because to me, I was like, okay, what do I feel when I'm reading this, when I'm vibrating this essence, right? And it felt like, to me, everything I thought of the universe is being rewritten, rather than it being like a form of illusionary kind of thing, Maya the illusion. It was more becoming Maya the mother. And with that being rewritten from reciting this chapter, especially Ustad Sri Maya Lakshmi Ji ki, it being re-understood, and it becoming, the universe becoming a mother figure to me, and nurturing and nourishing to my nature, rather than something that was feeling deceiving or got to be careful of certain things, right? This is being rewritten of now the universe is a mother. It's nourishing, it's caring, it's kind. So for me, that was a lot that changed within me from reading that for the first time. So I'd like to ask you, what was your personal experience with that?
Well, that's a brilliant explanation, and it just shows how deep you went into it, because I would say my reading was the same, and I would say, having gone through cover to cover many times, I'd see that's probably the essence of the Bani. And that, what Guru Gobind Singh Sache Paatshah has put forward for us there, is actually not new. This begins with the earlier Gurus, and we find it in Anand particularly, it springs to mind. Obviously in non-duality, that's covered, okay, in Ik Oankar by Guru Nanak, this covers everything. But in actual theme, what you said there is summed up by Guru Amar Das. E vis sansar tum dekhte, e har ka roop hai, har roop nadari aaya. So vis means poison, so this poisonous maya you're seeing, it's actually the form of har, of Paramatma. And so it's ek onkar, Kudrat kavan kaha vichar, vare na jawe ek var, jo tud pave sai paliga tu sada salam narankar. Kudrat there is not just Kudrat, it means God itself. Qadar and Kudrat. So the masculine and the feminine, the Purush and the Prakriti. When does it become Maya in a negative sense? The mind. That's what Guru Maharaj is talking about in Gurbani. The mind is Maya. This is not Maya. If you look at it in the wrong way, of course it's poison. But when you look at it the right way, what does it become? The mother. It becomes the feminine aspect of Waheguru, of consciousness, of the supreme consciousness, of the supreme Sat Chitanand. And then also we can look at it in terms of time. So there's another way of looking at this as well, which I would want to share with you, which blew my mind when I first kind of realized it, is we look at Waheguru as a Kal Purkh, the Lord or the divine beyond time, deathless. This being is deathless, is a Juni, it's deathless. It has no June because it's not in time. Everything in time is born, and so it's put in time. So it's non-dual, so it's not in time, it's timeless, it's eternal. But everything in this level is temporal and in duality because there's a beginning and an end. But Guru Gobind Singh turns this on its head as well, because Maharaj says, the Lord of time, Kal Purkh, the Lord within time. What is happening through the will of that same divine, which is the divine within time. So there was something I read in Christian theology which was interesting. They said Jesus is the Messiah because the Lord was interested in what was happening in his creation. Thus he appeared in a form to interact with what he'd created. That's very similar to the concept of the Lord of time. So that's a very Sargun way of saying Jesus was the form that interacted within time to save the time or to save mankind. But the Guru says, no, all of creation is that Lord of time, that Mahakal, that the time Lord, which is interacting in time, which is interested in what is happening within what is created, because it is what is created itself. There's no separation. It's ek onkar. I think when you realize that, there's a mind-blowing moment when you get to that, and hence why I've thought to myself, I have to write an English translation of Sarbloh Granth Sahib. I felt compelled because when I had that realization, it was so enlightening for me, I couldn't help but share it with my brothers and sisters because it's given me so much. It's enriched my life 1,000,000 trillion fold. And I wanted my brothers and sisters to have that same abundance, the same joy, the same blissfulness. And people were against it. They said, oh, it's a secret Granth. But it's not true. Grierson, he wrote about Sarbloh Granth in the 1880s. Before that, other writers had noted there was more than one Granth that Sikhs had that they referred to. And so this thing about Sarbloh Granth Sahib being secret, I don't know. I heard that when I went to the Dalpant as well. They said, well, we kept this secret. We didn't want the British to get their hands on it. But at the same time, even in around 1840s, even copies of Dasam Granth Sahib were given with the Panth's permission to the British at various symposiums for Asiatic research around the world. So I don't know. I've not read anywhere Maharaj says this is a secret. I think this is said to explain why it wasn't so much prachar done of it. And even that we can explain historically. Guru Granth Sahib Bani starts with Guru Nanak Dev Ji. In the Pothi Mala building, the Pothi of Guru Nanak Dev Ji was already there. This was lost, I think, in the 1950s or something like that, but it was photographed. And then we know about the Pothi of Guru Arjan Dev Ji, where the Bhagat Bani was collected. That became the Ard Granth. So the Bani from the first Guru to the fifth was compiled with the Bhagatandi Bani. It becomes the first Ard Granth, and Guru Arjan Dev Ji, he's in so much barag, they collect his tears and they have this as prasad. And Guruji, when he finished his compilation of this magnificent scripture, of the ultimate scripture, you can say, he even sleeps on the floor. He even rests on the floor underneath it. He won't sit on the same level as the Sarup. And that's installed in the temple that Guru Ramdas begins Harbandar Sahib. It's Guru Arjan Dev Ji finished it. It was Guru Ram Das who started it. Hence why they do, if you notice at Darbar Sahib, they sing to Guru Ram Das in the morning. They do all the chonkiyan, yeah? And they're praising Guru Ram Das. Guru Ram Das, this is Guru Ram Das's throne. Guru Arjan Dev Ji inherited it. Where Akal Purkh came and did seva themselves in the guise of an old man, where that tear of mitti went when that sarovar was created. One sevadar was going, putting the mitti in one place. That's where the Akal Takht Sahib is. Akal Purkh put the knee pathar for that takht by itself through divine power. And so this is where Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj was installed. Then Nome Pashe, the sloka added in. And so the power of Gurbani, the power of that Naam, is just on a different level. And then Guru Sheme Pasha starts the Taddi Vara to inspire Sikhs. Baba Buddha Ji was his first journal. The Braham Kavach became Pargat then actually. And the Shastra Puja happened, Taddiyan Vara, you know, the Taddi Jathe, the Tunis were added to Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj, the Bardic kind of energy. Because Guru Gobind Singh formalized that within the Darbar of Dasm Darbar, of that Taddi. That's the Taddi of the time. That's the heroic, the poetry to inspire us with dharmic messages and how we should behave and how we shouldn't behave to help us in our journey through Kaljug. And then to worship that abundance, to give us wealth, to give us health, Siri Sarbloh Granth. Like a lot of people now, they say it's related to wealth, but it's all warfare. It says Biras is warfare, but about what? To find the light over the dark, to find the truth over the chut, and about the feminine divine puja, about prakriti, not hating existence, not having this existential angst, becoming one with existence. This is essentially Sarbloh Granth that allows prosperity, and where there's wealth, it's connected to health. And it's not a coincidence, the first Sarups of Sarbloh Granth were bound with Ayurvedic Granths.
Wow.
The oldest Sarup, which was signed with Maharaj's Daskat by Maharaj's hand, the end of that Sarup was an Ayurvedic Granth.
Wow. From
the Guru's court. So this is not coincidence either. So I think it's interconnected to this kind of thing, and this discernment, Babek, Satogun, purity. Sarbloh still has big elements of Tamogun, of some very dark battles and blood and everything, but it's kind of to anchor all that sattva. There's so much Satogun in there. It's to anchor it so it doesn't go off like a fairy, you know? And there's so much Rajogun in there.
For me, it's something that was such a key, like, in my spiritual journey to solidify who I am and solidify my spiritual practice, to make me feel secure within that, within my practices. I feel like it's something which people need these medicines, right? People need to feel safe and secure. And yeah, Sarbloh Granth really gave me that strength within myself and solidified something. It gave me stability in my mind further and anchored it in. And it's almost like it's planted a seed which I can't even try to move away. It's just there. It keeps calling me back and anchors me always. It's like you said, Gurbani is just so profound. It's beyond explanation. It's everything we need.
It's that core of existence, you know, that Sarbloh, that iron core of the earth, that gravity, that groundedness, the Sarbloh of the Shastra of your Kara. And just to go back one point, so the grounding, very like you said, to be like steel, to be strong, to be determined, how it brings you back to itself, because it's like your father or your grandfather, your bibi, someone putting you back into the Sach. It definitely has that energy too. But just to go back to like these kind of weird suspicions people make, you know, the Sarbloh Granth has been online for nearly 20 years in terms of a PDF in Punjabi. Anyone could have read it. It was available for the last 30 years from Chatar Singh, Jeevan Singh in Amritsar. You could go there and purchase a copy. So me translating it into English is no revolution. It's no big sin. It's a contribution for our Najwan, for our children, for our brothers and sisters, for our Panth to elevate itself to what's required of these times. And so that's about consciousness, you know. It's about the things that you're talking about. The Gurbani is a medicine for the poison of today. Hana? It's the right nectar. And if we take that in, it can purify us. And in a way, there's an analogy here that's quite important to the Amrit Sanchar. We remember that when we take Amrit, when we offer our head to Guruji, Nanak Guru Gobind Singh Ji, to Dage Sees Hamara Hai, we're giving our cease to Sache Pasha and putting it at Maharaj's feet and saying, do with me as you will. And when we take that Amrit and we're gifted with Khande Ka Paul, and we come into the Raat, when we're drinking that Amrit and the Shitte are put into our eyes and is put into our kesh, and we're given Naam, and we're given Raat, we're given these great gifts from the Guru and our Panchakakar, these great divine gifts. We forget that the Sarbloh has a taste of iron, but it also has sweetness. It's also mitta, and it's also like loha. And really, you know, we need, you know how we talk at the beginning of this conversation,
right?
balance.
It's just a complete circle around.
Yeah, this is that balance. And this is how, as a Panth, we need the full corpus of the Bani to bring balance. Of course, there's no question Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj is our Guru. But these are appendices. These are help us to understand what's in Guru Granth Sahib. It's Maharaj's own katha of that Gurbani. And we were talking about Chaupai Sahib, and we talked about the 405th story. Sarbloh Granth is the explanation of the 404th story. Again, we've gone full circle. And that's talking about protection at God's feet, Mangala Charan, the auspiciousness of the Charan. Tav Channan Man Re Hamara comes next in Chaupai Sahib. These are all connected themes, leitmotifs, they say in literature. What does that connect to? The bhakti within Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj.
Beautiful. I feel like that's really brought back the whole kind of conversation in a beautiful way. And just to kind of end in the last couple of minutes, I'd like you to share some advice, just general advice, anything that comes into mind that people might be able to relate to in this time, in this moment. What advice do you feel like is really relevant?
I think is what you brought up. Discernment is the babek. Clean out your mind. Like, look at your mind as a library. Look at your mind as a repository of many memories, of many feelings, emotions. Process them. Go through your inner library. Bulle Shah was a great Sufi saint, and he wasn't contemporary of Guru Gobind Singh, comes after. And he says, you've read the Quran, you've read the Katibah, you've read everything, but you never read yourself. We read Gurbani because Gurbani allows us, through its bhakti, its devotion, to communicate with our inner self. And whether we believe in Gurbani or not, because I want to make a universal message to people who may be non-Sikhs, everyone around the world, whoever it might be. Meditation, contemplation, really discernment, look within, try to go through these files of your mind, put some things in the recycle bin, put some things to rest that are not necessary anymore. Really meditate, put them to bed. Like things you don't need, things that you don't serve your best interest or the interests of other people. Put them away. Try to make your mind whole. Try to go through the story of your life. Try to journal. Try to contemplate what's in your mind. Try to filter through, you know, man tu jo swaroop hai apna mool pashan. And I think Farid ji says to apna dil har roj khojna. I've forgotten the Shabad, but the Shabad says that in Gurbani. Ki eda dil da khoj karna penda. Like, we've got so many things from universities and schools and other things, but asi apne dil se kade dekhya what's in our heart. How do I feel? How do I feel about certain things? We need to prioritize that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we need to prioritize what we feel in our dil. Okay? And I think, I don't want to sound bad, But I think some people have lost the feeling in their heart. I can see it on people's faces, even in our community. They're feelingless, they've gone numb. And they're on medications that numb them.
The Braham Ras has been forgotten. And I used to say, just saying the words Braham Ras and just reminding people, just bringing forth that essence into people's awareness. Like you said, it's just been forgotten.
Hanji. And who are we to judge? It's taken me a long time. Like, I've got my own views in the Panth. And I've realised, wow, there's a lot of different schools. And some of them I don't agree with. And before I could say I never hated them, but I had antagonism. Now I've come to peace with, okay, people have got different views. Koi laran di lod nahi. I was one of the biggest controversial people, always, putting something forward and thinking I'm in the right. But I've learned a lesson, which is no, sareyan de vichar theek hai jitte hage ya. But the biggest thing is apne aap nu vicharo. There's no point me looking at Gurj or somebody telling me your life and you're good and you're bad. Mainu apne dekhne chahiye ya. And if I do that, I'm always in a good place.
Absolutely.
Like I know myself practicing that now for a while. My life is much better in every level because I'm not taking my eye off the ball. Does that make sense? Discernment is keeping your eye on the ball. Awareness, Chetan, Chitta, consciousness. So I think really in this technological age where our senses are bombarded, information overload, we're always looking at something, taking in other information. What's our own information about us? About ourselves? Oda vichar karna chahiye. So please let's look at ourselves deeply. This is a gift from the Guru. This is what the Guru's told us to do in Gurbani. And for Sikhs, there's no deeper reflection of self other than Naam. Jada Naam Japanaya, or to read Guru Granth Sahib Shabads and the self-reflection via contemplation of Shabad. But for other people, meditation, mantra, whatever way they can do it, yoga, breath work, walking, they're long ways compared to Gurbani. Like if you sit in a japa of Braham Kavach, you change your life. And hence why we try to give this, the Chanan of Gurbani to a very dark world. And, I pray for peace I ask everyone, there's 150 people in our Braham Kavach group now, which is one of the biggest groups. Braham Kavach will be happening simultaneously in 15 countries while we're doing it.
Wow.
So people will be joining from around the world. And our prayer is just one prayer, Sarvata da Pala. Nanak Naam Chardi Kala, Tere Pane Sarvata Pala. May there be peace on this world. Jag Jalanda Rakhe, Apni Kirpa Tar. And that's all I pray for. I'm not perfect. I'm not a good person. I can't say I'm good. I'm less than everybody. But I find peace in being nothing. And I wish to remain nothing. I don't want to be anything. I find so much peace in being nothing and doing normal things. And I think jeri shanti are very important. And I think shanti can only come je assi apne aap nu dekhiye. And dujjan nu ghat dekhiye. The other day I was hoovering and I thought my room was clean. I moved a cupboard and I was like, oh my God. Wow, that's really bad, Kamalroop Singh. You need to do that more often, yeah? Hana? Mind we dandaya. So please, my beinti is let's contemplate ourselves. Let's look at ourselves. And that's the biggest gift for ourselves, our family and humanity.
That's such a beautiful message, and I feel like an important one that all people can benefit from in various different ways. Really exploring the self, it's key, it's important. Really rediscovering the self, working out who we are, why do we exist in this time, why is the soul in this body now, and just empowering that discernment, intellect and intuition, and enjoying the life experience with compassion, with joy, with peace, with harmony, with balance, with all the things you mentioned, really enjoying this experience of life. It is a pure gift. We are existing, we are seeing the mother, we're existing within the mother universe with the grace of God, and it's a magical thing to contemplate. We should all explore this world within us, and it's been a very beautiful conversation, very contemplative. It's been very enlightening. I'm really grateful to sit with you, to talk with you, to connect with you again, and I'm sure we will connect further over the next few months as well. So thank you very much. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.